Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's Friday night on talkTV. I'm Mike Graham, of course, and this is the one show where you don't have to worry about judging anybody at all, because we'll do it all for you. There's an awful lot of plankery out there, and I'm delighted to say I've got a brilliant panel of people to help you decide who should win it this week. We've got Esther Krakue, we've got Howard Cox, we've got Rebecca Twomey, and we've got Stephen Barrett. So, let us get on with it. This is what they're all after, the famous Plank of the Week prize. It's a very expensive piece of wood, toned specifically for this very programme. Esther,
is it made of oak?
I think so. I think it is. It was actually made by somebody who's a viewer, so thank you very much indeed to them. Let's have a look at what your first one is. I think we're going with the police, aren't we?
The Metropolitan Police, yes. Which is sad because I didn't want to paint the whole police force, tar them with this brush, but I can't help it.
It's difficult.
It's really difficult. So a volunteer police officer, she had a go at a gospel singer in Oxford Street, saying that she couldn't sing gospel songs outside of church.
Right.
And for some reason, she got on a high horse thinking this was actually the law. So clearly, she's on a power trip and she doesn't know the law.
Right.
And then when she was told...
It's a bit unfortunate that they've given her a uniform, isn't it?
Yeah, and she stuck her tongue out.
Right.
The gospel singer, who has over 300,000 subscribers on YouTube, so she's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking to myself, I mean, this is a stereotype amongst like sort of African aunties, but they're always humming gospel music everywhere they go.
Right.
Like, in the kitchen, on trays. And I just thought this person would have to arrest half of South London.
She would have to do that, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, before we go any further, let's have a look. This is Maya Hatsipetkova having a go at Harmony London.
No, miss, you're not allowed to sing church songs outside of church grounds, by the way.
You're not allowed to sing church songs outside
of church songs or church
you're not allowed
grounds. That's fine. That's
you're not
fine.
allowed. She just said you're not allowed to sing church songs outside of church.
Our church outside of church grounds, unless you have unless
That's
you've been authorized by the church to do this kind of song.
Are you saying that you don't care about the Human Rights Act? You're lost.
That is an unclean tongue.
Amazing, right? So this is a woman, she's originally from Bulgaria, right?
Yeah.
Apparently she went to Cyprus for a while, came here, lives here now, has worked in a variety of jobs, including, I think, at the moment, working for Costa Coffee.
Yeah.
Has worked in a pub. I mean, how the hell did the police decide that that's a good person to hire, to be a volunteer police officer, to wear a uniform, to be treated, to all intents and purposes, like a police officer, and to have the power, more or less, to arrest people?
Well, she was clearly on a power trip.
Yeah, she was threatening to confiscate all the equipment.
But the thing is, I'm not concerned about this insolent young woman. I'm more concerned about experienced police officers that are also in it just because they're on a power trip. They like to control people. Because there will inevitably be people that, get into the force that do have that mindset. And that's what I find more concerning. Obviously, this person is harmless. She's, what, 21?
Well, she's less than harmless. I mean, she's actually performing a decent service. I mean, according to the police, they're investigating what could have happened. And
they did apologise in their defence.
And the context, and they said it had something to do with the busking laws. But the busking laws do not prevent people from singing in public.
Well, there was a sort of mealy-mouthed defence where they put out a tweet saying, look, we've got a 40-minute video to analyse. This is going to take a while. I mean, and the idea that they can't just watch the video... I mean, it is absolute nonsense. We have freedom of religion in this country. Right. I just remind you that Christianity is a proselytising religion. If she wasn't allowed to sing gospel music, if the Bible was copyrighted, I'm not sure it would have done quite as well as it's done. Right. This idea that you can't sing is clearly nonsense. But the problem is that people want to control other people.
Yeah. Well, we saw that during COVID, didn't we? I mean, there was far too much enthusiasm shown by some of these police officers when they were telling people not to sit down on the grass and not to drink coffee, and walk that way, not this way. I mean, it's unbelievable. People loved it.
Well, the point is, Mike, when I become London Mayor, as you know, that I'm heading that direction.
He is indeed standing for Mayor, yes.
And, well,
thank God.
Part of London Mayor is the Police and Crime Commissioner. Yeah. And so that they would, the whole Metropolitan Police reports into the Police and Crime Commissioner. And the thing I'm going to do, I'm going to do a pretty sort of popular thing, I think. I want them to catch criminals.
Yeah. It's unusual. Controversial.
How dare you?
Controversial.
Outrageous.
Sadiq Khan, strangely, has been quiet on this. He hasn't said a word, has he?
I don't want to make it about whataboutery, but I genuinely believe that if it was someone of a different religion that was singing or proselytising, as you were saying, I think the reaction or the confidence of that young police officer would have been very different. Yes,
I think so. Well, Julie Hartley-Brewer, as you might expect, had something to say about it as well. Let's have a look at this.
You can't, say that, trans women aren't women and things like that. People being threatened with arrest for basic statements of belief and freedom of speech. And yet, weirdly, you're allowed to shout for jihad if you're on a pro-Palestinian, pro-Gaza march on a Saturday afternoon in London. I find this a bit confusing.
She's not the only one. I mean, it's mad, isn't it, Rebecca?
Yeah, and what I think as well is, particularly her age, I think it's symbolic of this generation where the authority they have, because they've grown up on social media and because you can put your opinion on social media, on Twitter, you then think you have the authority of that opinion.
Yeah.
So I can't blame her entirely as an individual, but I do think it's an age thing where this entitlement that this generation does seem to have, that I'm right and this is my decision.
I do find it strange because I don't know at what point the cutoff is, because I'm probably closer to her generation than everyone else here. But I also think I'm just saying.
I don't know what you're saying.
I suspect. But also, I've lived in London and I'm actually quite scared to go up to people with impunity and just say, you can't do this, you can't. In London?
But my concern is more about how many other idiots have they hired to be, volunteer police people. Because apparently you get a reduction in your council tax if you apply to do it. You don't get paid to do it, but you get a reduction in your council tax. And you get free travel on all TfL networks.
If they're running, that is.
If they're running, if they're not on strike.
Not striking.
Yeah, absolutely.
That sounds quite
and also, if it's a bus, it doesn't actually go anywhere. It just sits there, and you get on it for a while, and you decide, oh, this is no good. I'll get off and start actually
and
walk.
make sure it's not an electric bus either.
Yeah, because that'll burst into flames. Horrendous. I mean, my goodness me. Sadiq Khan, believe it or not, doesn't get a mention on this week's Plank of the Week, but he'll probably get a couple of references.
Is he on holiday?
He might be. He might be. Howard, you're going to go for the Prime Minister.
Well, I've been on a few planks, as you know, and I don't think there's been one that I haven't mentioned Sadiq Khan. So
this is actually, I think this is the first week this year that he hasn't been mentioned.
It's a Sadiq Khan free zone,
amazing,
which is great.
If only.
The thing I'm going to talk about is the other person that's in Westminster, our Prime Minister.
Yes.
And it's really sad to me, this one, because what he's tried to do this week, I sort of support in a funny sort of way, but it's not that important.
Right.
And he's talking about actually banning disposable vapes.
Yes.
And bear in mind, he already come out that for anyone born after, I think, 2009 will never be sold as a cigarette.
Yeah.
All he's doing is building this underground network of crime, of actually pushing this. But the big thing, Mike, is that, there's more important things going on at the moment, isn't it?
Well,
and that's the thing I'm coming from.
Yes. Well, that's the trouble with Rishi Sunak. He keeps passing laws that aren't necessary, which don't work anyway, instead of doing the right thing and actually cleaning everything else. We've got a clip, I think, of Rishi visiting a school to take them some vapes. I'm not quite sure why he was doing that, because it's supposed to be illegal. But here we go.
Grapefruit, bubblegum, strawberry, berry burst. When you look at that, what's the first thing that jumps out at you guys? Bright colours. Let's take a sweet.
Appealing to younger people.
Do you think that's right?
No.
I mean, this is Rishi Sunak pretending that he's not supplying all of these vapes to all of these kids. And then the kids are all pretending, oh, we don't like those. We don't ever really smoke those. That's absolutely not
Well,
what we
the AI boys are making films about that. You watch what's going to come out there. Which one would you like?
Yeah.
But it is wrong that you have a bubblegum flavoured drug.
Oh, they smell awful.
And that's what it is.
Well, the thing that I'm puzzled by on this, and Stephen, you may be able to help us out with this, but I mean, there's a load of shops that have grown up out of nowhere, which are selling these things. I don't even know whether they need a licence. I don't know how they got the shop. I don't know whether they're in some way nefarious operators who are basically money laundering. I mean, you just don't really know. But all I know is that, whenever anybody tries to ban anything, it just pushes it underground.
Well, conceptually, I hate the idea of a ban on cigarettes that goes up by years. Just because, as a law, we've never done that before, and I hate it. It makes my head hurt. So I just don't get it. It feels very, very odd and alien. On vaping, I mean, we know nicotine is a dangerous and addictive drug, and the Prime Minister may very well have a good point that they shouldn't be marketed to children. Quite why he takes that into a school is a different point.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of the wisdom of children. Okay, we're living through an age in which, and it's like the young police officer, everybody in power now, or the elite, will look to sort of justify their ideas as, well, the children think it's a good plan.
Yeah.
The children think children, I've got a child. Children don't know what they're doing.
No.
This idea is insane.
But this has happened ever since Greta Thunberg appeared on the scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody went, oh, but look at her, she's so brilliant. Really? She hasn't even been to school for more than about 2 years.
The environmentalists use it all the time.
Yeah.
They use this emotion regarding, oh, my poor children, or children growing up, do you want to leave this planet the way it is, all that sort of thing.
People are always saying to me, don't you care about your children's its future. To which I say, absolutely not. That's up to them. I'm leaving them no money. They can fend for themselves. I'm spending it all as I go.
That is horrible.
And it's not horrible. I didn't get left any money by my parents. You know, I did all right.
Could you leave me some?
I'll leave you some. Yeah, there you go. There won't be any left, by the way.
I find it strange because this is an affliction of all parties. So this week, Rishi Sunak is trying to ban disposable vapes. Last week, it was Keir Starmer trying to teach your kids how to brush their teeth.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not just the Conservative
Is
Party.
that after vaping or before?
Well, I don't even know. But the thing is, he also doesn't understand people, right?
No.
If I was a young person and someone told me if I smoked a disposable vape, my breath would stink, I would never go near it, right? We don't understand how the human psychology. I said, if you told young people, by the way, you smoking that bubblegum, you smell like death. You just smell funky.
But the thing is, kids
like
will now
shower.
If kids can't get vapes, they'll just buy cigarettes and they'll smoke cigarettes instead because that's what they do.
It's an incentive structure. If they thought, oh my gosh, no one's going to kiss me if I smoke this, they'll never touch it, right? But if you have Rishi Sunak in there saying, oh, look at this, he's on naughty.
But I repeat, there are more important things going on with Keir Starmer as well. He can murder anyone, he'll still become...
I mean, it is unfortunately the rule of thumb, isn't it, though, that the authorities just don't get it. I mean, you know, they should be trying to ban zombie knives or something instead of actually...
Or machetes, that'd be nice.
You know, George Carlin used to do a routine where there was a kid in Chicago who was shot dead by the police because he pulled out a fake gun and they thought it was a real gun and they killed him. And so he said, so what did the police do? They decided to ban the fake guns. So nobody had a fake gun, but the people who could kill you still had the real guns. I mean, it's mad. Rebecca, who's your plank for the first nomination?
Well, my nomination is the EU.
Hurrah!
So
the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Absolutely. Why not?
Especially what they've been up to. They have just released this toolkit on using gender-neutral language.
Yes.
So one of the first ones is no longer using no man's land.
No man's land.
King and queen needs to be queen and king.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be this female first. You have to use assertive, not bossy. The most patronising language you can use. There's much more important things. If you want to look particularly at women's rights, for example, what about the 3,000 women across Europe who were killed by, you know, a partner or a family member?
Yeah.
That might be something better than offending. I don't think many people are offended by no man's land.
I think manpower's in there as well somewhere, isn't it?
You know what's the funniest one? Virile. So apparently you can't use the word virile because it's only used to describe men. And I just think if you describe a woman as virile, you're dealing with one of those new women with penises.
Can you describe... I was going to say...
You're not dealing with the original kinds of women.
I was going to ask you if you can describe a trans man as shrill, because shrill's one of the words you're not supposed to use. And as you say, can you?
I mean, I prefer to not be called virile because I'm assuming someone would think there's an Adam's apple there.
Yeah.
It's going to pop up.
I've got some good news for you. You're not very virile.
Thank you. That's.
And you're not shrill either.
I try not to.
There's only two words that you're supposed to not. You know, these are the only two adjectives they've thought of.
Yeah.
It's also a noun because I'm regularly called a shrill on Twitter.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you sure it's not a shill? No. I mean, I've been called that as well. Anyway, but it's a ridiculous. It's part of this new culture that, you know, if you say words differently, which inevitably are, because I actually took the time to change a paragraph that I wrote and replace all the words with the words they wanted it to use. And like all of these things, it becomes a less accurate written record of whatever it is you're doing because no man's land describes something. And I think what was their substitute for that? It was something like, you know, unclaimed territory.
Yeah.
This is not the same thing.
No, it isn't, and it offends me as a lawyer. But it is again the same concept. It's power. Okay, but what's happening is the young are being offered the addictive offer of power, but over things that really don't matter.
Yeah.
So buy them off. Let the young people have control over the language. Let the young people wear police officers' uniforms. Don't pay them, but let them wear an officer's uniform. Meanwhile, the elite, the commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, is performatively powerless. But he has all the real power. And we're living in a society where young people don't have any real power. You know, their votes are almost not mattering. And this is quite an important situation. So we're offering to buy them off with cheap, addictive, fake power over language. You can tell him so-and-so off. You can tell so-and-so off. You can correct this language and police this. But it's not real power. They're not really being allowed to engage in society, buy houses and succeed and be adults. They're being kept as children.
Yeah, well, the people running the country are acting like children most of the time as well.
Incredibly infantilizing.
It really is. Stephen, over to you. The BBC.
So my first one is the BBC, and because I mean, look, it's inherent. I'm getting more political on these shows because it's the nature of them. But I'm still sticking to my roots, which is that I believe that there is a line between law and politics.
Yes.
And that line is part of what being impartial as a broadcaster is. I expect and believe there is a constitutional expectation that the BBC should be impartial.
Yeah.
And so the BBC is my nominee because it's clearly not.
Right.
It emerged that the BBC is favouring hiring, saying that you cannot hire people unless they adhere to a political philosophy. Okay. Now, I don't even need to say which one it is, but the idea that you are picking people based upon their personal political opinions, which frankly are a private, private matter.
And it could also change as well, because just because you're interviewing somebody who says one thing, you know, a couple of years later, when you give them the job, they might become a complete and utter maniac.
Well, the idea that we have such agency that we might actually change our mind is always denied to us. I mean, the witch hunt that goes on social media once people find out something about you, and therefore all your views are set in stone, and they now know everything, every secret thought you've ever had.
Oh, I keep getting
called. It's complete trash.
I'm a horrible person, apparently, according to people on Twitter. They know I'm a horrible person because I've got horrible views. Therefore, I must be a horrible person.
You must change them.
Yeah.
But I mean, the argument I was making is the reason why the BBC tend to stuff up political journalism so much. I mean, they put out a lot of content and they seem to remain fairly impartial because the left thinks they're right wing and the right thinks they're left wing. But it's always on political commentary, to do with the Gaza and Israel situation, that they mess up, because actually the people around them, the people that are making these editorial decisions, there's no diversity of thought. They insist on diversity, but it's only diversity that's skin deep.
They're all middle class, right?
You can't do your job properly.
They all come out of the same pot. Surely the whole point, if you really want to define diversity and use the proper definition of the word, then you should also hire the people you don't like, shouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, because they can
That's
check
proper
you.
diversity.
Because they can check you. They can say, actually, it's probably a good idea to call Hamas terrorists because there's not really any other better way to describe them.
Yes.
But they are terrorists. I get really angry about this one. We have a legal definition of terrorists, and they're terrorists.
They are.
There is also facts, and we know the facts of what they've done. I've watched some of the stuff. They're terrorists.
Yeah. But this is the other thing that people get confused about. They don't know what a fact is anymore because they're so imbued with this idea that you can have any fact you want because they've learned this at school, that you can dispute anything, and therefore why can your facts not be better than my facts?
Well, one of the, I think it's Head of News, one before last, actually issued an email in the BBC and passed it around. It said, you must not interview anyone that has any climate change denial positioning. And I'm not joking. In other words, you cannot have a debate about the other side of the argument.
No.
I don't mind them having a position on it,
right.
But for God's sake, to actually have it's actually embedded policy.
Yeah.
You cannot interview anyone.
But this is the trouble with people who want to shut everybody down they don't agree with. It's nonsensical. But here's something that will cheer you up. This is a workplace trying diversity bingo.
Does anybody have an East Asian employee?
Oh my God, I won bingo. I've got an East Asian employee in my office.
We may have a winner. Let's check it out.
Obviously, East Asian employee. Female, you call, they got at least one of those. I've got a gay employee. I've got a South Asian employee. The free space. I've got a minority intern that works for free.
We have a winner, all right. Great example of an executive. Congratulations, sir.
Damn it, I didn't have a female employee.
I don't even know what a pansexual is.
Oh.
I don't know where Chuck finds these, but
that is brilliant.
Well, quite funny anyway. And it is. I mean, you end up disappearing up your own backside if you try all this stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
Make sure you've got one of each.
Well, you do, because you've abandoned clear rules and you've abandoned merit.
Right.
And if you abandon clear rules and merit, you will go mad.
And to be serious for a minute, it's not surprising that none of the businesses that operate in this way actually have forgotten how to do the business they're supposed to be doing. Yeah. You know, how the civil service doesn't work, how, you know, big companies like banks don't work, and how things are falling apart because they're too busy making sure they've got one of each.
But there's all this training. Like when I was a hiring manager, I called it anti-bigotry training. But you spend hours in training making sure you hire the right people, you don't offend, just like that. You make sure you've got a diverse team, like you said, skin deep. But there's no diversity of opinion in so many newsrooms. You've all worked in them. Yeah. There's only one type of an opinion, and that's really dangerous when you think about news agendas.
Well, it is. I mean, journalists used to be inquisitive when I was a journalist.
I still am, but
you know, but I still am as well. But you know, apparently that's not the right thing to be anymore. But what can I say? That's the first section done and dusted. We're coming up very shortly with some more. I'm going to be suggesting a guy who's flip-flopped and now is voting Labour might be a plank of the week. And also, we're going to talk about the HMRC, which is always risky. They might come after me for being critical of them. But this is Plank of the Week. We'll be back after this. welcome back to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham. This is, of course, talkTV, and it is Friday night. What better place to be to work out who has been the biggest idiot of this entire week? It's down to me to give you my first nomination, and it is the Nepo baby, Richard Walker, who is the boss of Iceland. You may have seen him in the news this week because he made a grand gesture. He's always been a Tory donor. He wanted to run as a Tory MP as recently as 2022. In fact, he was asked to put his name forward for a selection, and he didn't get selected. And I'd hate to say that that's probably now the reason that he's switched sides. That he's now decided that the Conservatives have moved away from the sort of conservatism that he likes, and the Labour Party have moved towards the sort of conservatism he likes. This is a guy
what conservatism is that? Cheap labour?
Well, he's a member of Greenpeace, so that should tell you everything you need to know about where his political beliefs lie. Yeah, he's obviously very keen on eco-nutty policies. And this is a guy who basically inherited Iceland, the food company, which a lot of people use, a lot of people like. I mean, I can't say that I do. I don't like buying frozen stuff, really.
Unless you're a broke student or you really don't care about preservatives and additives.
Yeah.
I mean, Aldi's better, really.
Well, I mean, I'm not in the business of ranking supermarkets, but I just don't particularly use it. So a lot of people do, and they say it's great, that's fine. But he's worth an awful lot of money, a couple of $100 million, I think. And he inherited the entire lot from his dad, who started Iceland and started the company and did a great job with it. So this week, he decided that he would invite Sir Keir Starmer, the head of the Labour Party, to come and visit him. Have a look at this.
It's absolutely fantastic to have you here, so welcome to Warrington. As you can see, we've got some of our lovely colleagues here. It's an opportunity, obviously, for them to ask some questions.
How do you plan to create a message of hope for those most impacted by the cost of living crisis?
I've always believed in changing things for the better, and now we go to the country with a message of hope and reassurance, and both of those things, which is things can get better.
Past the sick bag. Things can also get worse, of course, which is the bit you didn't mention. And, I just think this guy, I don't know what it is about this guy Walker, but he just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. He's got this kind of rather narcissistic tendency. He likes to appear on television. He likes to appear as a sort of panellist. He likes to think of himself as this incredibly successful guy. He's been on Questions, I think. He was on Laura Kunsberg's show the other week. And it's just as though, why does anybody care what this guy thinks,
He's quite small. Maybe it's like Napoleon syndrome.
I think he is quite small.
Yeah, I mean,
Because Keir Starmer's not that tall, and he's smaller than him. Yeah. Not that should be in any way an impediment.
Complex.
But I just think it's a bit weird that this is a guy who once donated loads of money to the Tory party, wanted to be a candidate for election, couldn't get selected, and has now suddenly decided, maybe he just thinks this is the next government, and I should probably get in with him.
Well, he looks 12 years of age, and that's why he's throwing the rattle out of the pram.
But didn't he refuse to raise his employees' wages from minimum wage?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember. He kept having a go at some politician. I just thought, your employees are on minimum wage.
I mean, he runs a supermarket, so I'm sure most of the people working for him are not doing all that well.
Well, yeah, but if you're going to get on your high horse and criticise how people are treating others, you might as well give.
Well, I think he's disqualified on the grounds that he's a member of Greenpeace. No sensible person would actually support these people. Anyway, over to you, Esther. What's the next one?
So the next one is this weird French group called Riposte Alimentaire, which is
what does that mean?
Basically like food counterattack. They form part of the holy trifecta of Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion, and now they're the food version in France. And they threw pumpkin soup at the Mona Lisa in the Louvre this week. To
be fair, that's all you should do with pumpkin soup. You should never eat it. It's awful.
Exactly.
Horrible.
Well, it's not that bad. But to protest the fact that 1 in 3 French farmers don't get 3 square meals a day.
Yeah.
Now, they could get 4. They didn't specify. They just said they don't get 3 square meals a day.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, they have to destroy, the casing of one of the most viewed pieces of art in the world. I mean, 80% of the people that go and visit the Louvre in Paris go for the Mona Lisa. But the thing is, there's just such strange people because they never seem employed. They can do this in broad daylight. I'm like, don't you have taxes to pay?
They've always got sort of dead eyes as well. They're dead behind the eyes.
They always look like they smell, like they need a good shower, and they always look hairy, like that's a feminist.
Yes.
And then they're just even their appeal just ruins whatever they're talking about. I'm like, okay, you may be saying something important, but you also have hairy legs.
Yeah. That's true. Let's have a look at what they did. I mean, it doesn't matter what they're saying, really, does it?
Yeah.
It's the same objectionable people like Just Stop Oil. And, of course, what was amusing to me there was all the kind of Only in France would you get that. Somebody's throwing le soup at the soup du jour.
At the painting.
At the picture.
It brought the farmers out on the street.
The farmers.
Yeah.
I mean, they should worry more about the farmers.
Exactly.
They're about to lay siege to Paris
Didn't
and
they
starve
throw
everybody
manure
out.
at the Macron's house or something like that?
I think so.
Yeah. Which is where manure belongs.
But these people are climate protesters about food, right?
Yeah.
It's very complicated.
Our legal system has a particularly noble way of dealing with this, which is to say that, of course, people can and do have very strong political beliefs and principles, and they may then commit crime. And so what we say is that the way that they demonstrate their commitment to those principles is by going to prison.
Yes, I agree with that, and for a very long time. Because funnily enough, the Just Stop Oil lot stopped sitting on the motorway when they started locking them up.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because as much as they said, oh yeah, we don't mind going to prison, they didn't like it very much.
Well, the police were doing their job at last.
Yeah.
And that's what I was really pleased about it, because they were, up until then, they were making them cups of tea.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if they're trying to swell up the Rwanda numbers, they can always add the Just Stop Oil and the Extinction Rebellion lot. You know, nice holiday in Rwanda.
And isn't it funny that it's only in the sort of decadent West that all of this stuff goes on?
I know.
You don't really see anybody doing it anywhere else.
It is a testament to how safe the UK is that someone can lie in the middle of the M25 as a form of protest with impunity and not be scared for their life. I mean, if they were anywhere else,
it's also an indication of how bad
but
traffic.
they should be, because the amount that inconvenience people. And just with that, people go to the Louvre because they adore art.
Yeah.
What was the point of doing that there? You can make your point in so many different ways, and it's always these types of characters that don't seem to really make their point very well.
Right. And all they
it
ever
makes
say
everyone
is,
hate them.
And all they ever say is, yeah, but you're talking about it, so it must be working. Well, no, not if everybody's calling you a complete and utter plank. It's not actually really working for you at all, because you're not winning over hearts and minds. Nobody's actually going, oh yeah, that's a really good cause.
But it's interesting, Stephen, you were making about, you know, everyone's got the right to political views. Great, it's not a problem at all. But these people are ill-informed. I was only speaking not so long ago to a Just Stop Oil protester standing around holding with a T-shirt, holding some banner. And I started to, why are you doing this? She said, well, just think, we just had an earthquake in Japan. I said, what's that got to do?
You cannot make it up.
No.
Right.
The weather god is angry. We must placate the weather god.
Every weather phenomenon is like climate change. Like, you know, climate is defined over 30 years.
They actually are,
it's
though.
It's a summer.
Yeah. They are actually, but they are like those kind of ancient civilizations who are terrified if you take their picture. They're that superstitious.
They're like the ancient Mayans.
Right. And also we saw Greta Thunberg and her cause this week, because she was deciding not to wave banners around about climate change. She was waving banners around about Gaza and having a ceasefire.
Apparently she was shouting no climate justice on occupied land. And her congregation of the other mentally unwell people that joined her there were shouting it as well. So it was quite an interesting phenomenon.
But stay in your lane, like choose your cause, and if you're exactly that much of an idiot, stick with the cause.
But this is the thing:
leads.
they all in the end are just all Marxists who want to sort of tear everything down and get rid of capitalism and replace it with some form of weird, cult-like scenario. Howard, up to you.
Right, OK.
Now, this is a very brave nomination.
I know, we better make sure we're not going to be grabbed outside.
Well, I've just paid my taxes, so I'm hoping that they'll be all right.
Well, look, this is the week when all self-assessed people have got to get their tax return in. If they don't get it, they've got to pay £100. But the thing is, and it's, I'm going to read this because I think HMS Revenue and Customs has missed a deadline for responding to MPs who slam plans to digitise the tax system. And it's costing them £2 billion because of the delay.
Right.
And we're paying.
And what are they actually doing? What's digitising the tax system?
Well, I mean,
putting it on a computer.
Yeah, well, they've already done the VAT. My company is VAT registered, and every quarter I have to set VAT.
Yeah.
And it is done digitally. You put a little spreadsheet together, box A, box B, all the way down, and you just drag it across to a system which you have to pay for to use, and it automatically goes to the Exchequer.
Does it work?
It does actually work quite well, but unfortunately they were trying to do, well, not fortunately, they're trying to move this to everyone on self-assessment as well. So people, you're calling a shop person, all these sorts of things, and a cab driver, when he puts his tax return, you only have to press button A, press button B. That sounds like the old telephone system, wouldn't it?
It does.
But what's happened is, in fact, in a damning report, the Public Accounts Committee hit out at the tax office for repeated failures that have led to its new online service being bogged down in delays and cost overruns. Oh, what a surprise. I guess it's because they're all working from home.
Yes, I imagine that's probably true. Although, I mean, in any time I've ever had to have dealings with the tax people, they're normally reasonably helpful if you can actually ever get through to them.
Yeah. Has it ever happened to you? You call them and be on hold for like 40 minutes and then it just cuts?
No, I don't wait. I don't.
Oh,
40
my
minutes,
God.
If I'm on hold for more than about 5 minutes, I just put the phone
just
down.
go.
I'm not hanging around.
It's true. When you get to the front line, it's like the NHS. Once you get to the doctor, everything works pretty well. Yeah. It's getting there.
It's getting there. Well, we've got something for you to see, Howard. You might like this. This is a little video about what it's like to work at HMRC.
The Embrace programme allowed me to be vulnerable. It made me feel like there was no question was a silly question. It gave me the confidence to realise what I was capable of. And ultimately, it made me feel like I belong. Now I get to share these skills I have learnt with my colleagues, making a positive impact for everyone. So for me, HMRC is not just a workplace. It's an inclusive space that truly understands and supports my personal needs. A workplace that I genuinely enjoy being a part of.
Sorry, as we were saying earlier, this is why they're not doing their jobs. Because at no point in that did he mention the word tax, which is what they do.
He looks like he just finished crying.
I know. He doesn't look happy at all. He's vulnerable. I don't want vulnerable people working at the HMRC,
he looks like he just through his breakup.
Yeah. What the hell is that
We'll pass that sick bucket, please. I just watched
that. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I'm speechless.
I am
speechless.
I have published, so in an article, and I'm quite proud that I've published, nowadays nobody wants to do their day job.
Yeah, they don't.
And I don't think anybody wants to.
No.
Everyone wants to
and
do
if you
something
get
else.
told off for doing something wrong, you just sort of throw yourself on the ground and have a tantrum and say, I'm feeling vulnerable. I'm not feeling vulnerable. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about higher education. We'll talk a bit about the devolved nations, because Wales and Scotland are in the news. And you might even get some royals as well. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We're getting very, very close to the final furlong, where I'm going to decide who gets to be the winner. But right now, let's go back to Rebecca Twomey. You've got your second nomination, Rebecca. What is it?
Harvard University.
Yeah, Harvard.
Now, I didn't think I would ever be saying this, but I, as a someone who enjoys popular culture, Harvard University, one of their English professors, is advertising for teaching assistants to help her teach a course in... Thank you. Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swiftology. That's what I'm calling it. They're looking... I know. Basically, she's looking for assistants who... One of the prerequisites to take this job is a love of Taylor Swift.
Right.
Again, no diversity in the teaching, no critical thinking. Just, if you love Taylor Swift... You'll be wanting to teach students who also love Taylor Swift about Taylor Swift's lyrics. I can sort of understand the lyrics maybe as poetry and...
I mean, she's a bit of a phenomenon.
She is incredible. And Swift economics, which is a big thing about all the money, her talent brings in. But one of the parts of the course is going to be studying texts that Taylor likes to read.
Text.
And I don't think it's Chaucer. So it's like, her favourite books. This is no disrespect to Taylor Swift. She's a brilliant artist. And she's got a huge following.
Cat in the Hat.
But Harvard University, this is a Mickey Mouse course.
I mean, this is a good example of how Harvard is no longer now doing what it says on the tin, because they're so busy pushing wokery on everybody. They just lost their dean, I think, didn't they, recently? Because she was another one of these people that couldn't bring herself to condemn Hamas, right? They've also just lost a major donor. I was reading, I can't remember his name, major businessman, a hedge fund manager, who's given them something like $500 million over the course of the last few years. And he's like, I'm just not giving them any more money. They've become complete and utter snowflakes.
And also, when you graduate from universities now, employers have already said in the UK, they're not capable to be doing the work that's needed. We've got an overqualified workforce because I believe
overqualified.
Too many people have degrees basically, and the degree becomes worthless. I think it's a shame that the polytechnics were dissolved because you had such a big range of courses, and everybody under Blair, it was education. Everybody felt an entitlement to go to university, and therefore felt, and perhaps rightly so, they cost so much now, degrees.
I think that's the biggest problem. That is the cost, because you actually have people that spend like 10 years paying off their student loan, and especially in the US, and they're just paying off the interest. So they don't even touch the actual student loan. I mean, to saddle an 18-year-old with tens of thousands of dollars or pounds worth of debt for nonsense like that, and they're no less qualified.
They've just turned it all into a massive business now, haven't they?
Yeah,
that's why we were learning this week, I think, from the Sunday Times, that they're now offering places more readily to foreign students because they pay more money. money.
Yeah.
They get 30 grand off them instead of 9. So they'll give them, matter if they're qualified or not. But we've got some a clip of this professor, Stephanie Burt at Harvard. Let's have a look.
Burt, a literary critic and poet, wants to draw bridges between Swift's songs and other memoirs, poems, and novels.
We're going to be looking at how she has handled her own fame, at her presence as a very, very guarded political figure.
Clearly a lot to cover, but Burt says she got a first draft syllabus written in just a couple of hours.
It's immoral. I don't know how people sleep at night. This is evil.
Well, there's two. I mean, for law in particular, there are two knock-on problems. The first is that we teach young people to believe in what they call authorial intent, which really is just setting young people out to find the secret motive someone believes something. So if you get abuse on social media, it'll be young people trying to find out your secret motive. Yeah. And that is quite sinister. And
because they think everybody's got some kind of agenda.
And exactly, and they're taught that is perfectly normal.
Right.
The second is this complete breakdown on impartiality, because you're quite right, you don't advertise for a Shakespeare scholar saying you must love Shakespeare. The guy who, and this is a point about journalism, the guy who hates Shakespeare may very well be much more interesting, and may have some better ideas.
Maybe more critical of some of the Shakespearean works that are not so good. Like Taylor Swift songs might be very good, but they're not all very good. And if you've got somebody who's sort of worshipping Taylor Swift, you're not going to get much of a
There's no
critical faculty being used.
But why Taylor Swift? Why not Adele or someone like that? Or...
Well, maybe they can do one in Adele. I mean, we've had David Beckham course.
Well, I'd like to do one on Led Zeppelin. There you are.
There you go. Okay. Well, go and have a word with Robert Plant.
Exactly.
You can find it at Wolverhampton Wanderers most weekends.
Yes, exactly.
He's in there. Stephen, you're going Welsh.
Well, I'm going, and not particularly against the Welsh, but against the idea of what powers do we want devolved government to have?
Probably none, I think. After this week, I would say none.
Well, what is the role of the Welsh, of devolved governments? And secondly, have planning laws gone quite mad? So the first point is that the Welsh government has attempted to invest about 4.75 million in a farm in Wales because they thought they'd run a green event there, a festival, that people would come, that they'd pay money for this, and this would be a real cash earner for the Welsh government. Are these local institutes of local government really best placed to work out what's going to be profitable and what's not?
Well, that's quite a lot of money, isn't it? As well?
It's a large amount of money to pour down the tube. They have poured it down the tube because the entire project's had to be cancelled because 2 nesting ospreys are on site, and therefore they can't have the festival because it might disturb the 2 nesting ospreys. Now, I don't know about many birds, but I'm guessing that they don't breed all year round.
No.
So I'm not entirely sure I understand why this is all gone down the tube.
But the great thing is they will be kiboshed or hoisted by their own petard or ospreys, if you like, because it will be their rules that have stopped them from actually developing the site, right?
Yes.
Because nobody else would actually have cared if they were saying, well, we're going to just move them, but they should stay away from anything that involves a business. They should stay away from anything that involves money because they don't know how to run anything. And I mean, look at Nicola Sturgeon this week. She's been up at the COVID inquiry in Glasgow, in Edinburgh, rather, Scotland, in tears, telling everybody how she wished that sometimes she wasn't the First Minister during COVID, and telling us, even more funnily, that she didn't delete any messages, she just didn't retain them.
I mean, resigning, if you don't want to be First Minister, there is a very simple solution.
Yeah.
I mean, that
well, Drakeford, luckily, is actually resigning, isn't he? He said
yes,
that I think he's leaving at some point soon. But he's been a disaster. All they've managed to do in Wales, apart from putting in incredible 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, right, and also put terribly hard and fast lockdown rules on everybody, is that they've applied to expand the Senedd because they don't think there's enough of them. So they've asked
and chase off a lot of the NHS patients too.
Well, yeah, but they've got worse NHS records than England. But they've got a plan to expand the members of the Senedd by another 50 people.
Well, we can't get enough of Welsh politicians, can we? We love them all.
I've always quite liked Welsh politicians as long as they come to London, but don't leave them down there because they seem to go to waste.
But you passed over the 20-mile-an-hour bit. That is absolutely wrecking business.
Yeah.
Tourism. I've got proof of that. I'm coming out with a press release next week about what's happened. And it's ridiculous what Mark Drayford's saying about that. It's saving lives. It's not.
No, of course it's not. It's not even saving his career. Let's have a look at Nicola Sturgeon. I think we've got a little clip of her crying.
To do the best I could. And so the idea that in those horrendous days, weeks, I was thinking of a political opportunity, I find, well, it wasn't true.
So, poor old Nicola. That was, I suppose it would be wrong, wouldn't it, to chuck in the Humza useless falling off his scooter again, but we might do that another time. But yeah, I mean, it just seems as though the whole devolution project, which was initiated by Tony Blair, bizarrely to stop nationalism, right, has completely failed.
Terrible.
I remember 1999 when everyone was so happy they all voted yes and suddenly they had their own devolved government. But, I mean, Scotland has got terrible figures for its health problems. It's got terrible drug-related problems, terrible drink-related problems. You know, they've got a First Minister now who doesn't seem to know his backside from his elbow.
I don't mind devolution so long as you don't give them responsibility over anything that matters.
Yes.
That's it. You can decide what color coding of, I don't know, plants in the communal areas. You can do that, right? Don't do any of the important stuff. Like the fact that they had authority over the use of their own COVID legislation. I was like, so you're going to bankrupt your local communities and expect Westminster to pick up the tab? It was utterly moronic.
I know. Incredible. And I mean, that's the trouble though. And you know, the once in a generation referendum that they were supposed to have. Yeah. You know, Nicola Sturgeon has now obviously, you know, given up on everything, and she just looks like a sort of broken woman. In fact, there was she arrived in the inquiry in an Audi estate from 2017, which some wag on Twitter had decided to check up with the DVLA. Doesn't have an MOT. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they found. Yeah.
I will look into that.
But she just looked like a sort of broken woman. You know, all those years ago, before she sent that bloke to a woman's prison. She was the Queen of Scotland. Now, you know, she literally couldn't buy a vote.
But I mean, we're devolving cities as well, and obviously I'm standing in one here in London.
Yes.
And the common factor in all of these, they can't manage a.
No.
Well, this country is a balkanized mess. I mean, if you look at the backlash of the fact that we might have to be conscripted and go to war with Russia. Yeah. And many people are saying, what exactly are we fighting for? I don't recognise the country that I was raised in. What values do we have that connect all of us?
Where's the pride in what we're doing?
Exactly. It's our Welsh soldiers. Would Welsh soldiers be fighting on behalf of English soldiers? Would they be fighting on behalf of Bradford or London that they don't even recognise?
The Scots will always fight because it's like fighting. Don't worry. I mean, you know, no, they do. When they went down to the Falklands, you know, the Scots regiments were all fighting each other before they got there. It took them 2 weeks to get down there. They were just beating the hell out of each other every night on the boat. It was great. Right, coming up, a bit of royal action we're going to be doing next. Harry and Meghan make a return to Plank of the Week. Welcome back to the final part of Plank of the Week. This is where I give you my second nomination. And then we also decide who's going to win. When I say we, actually I'm going to decide. And I'm going to nominate Harry and Meghan because they haven't actually been nominated. Well, not necessarily. They did win Planks of the Year again.
They always win
in 2023. They have won it 2 years in a row. It's true. But the reason this time is for Archewell and its latest sort of tale of woe. Archewell, of course, is the foundation that they started up. They set up Archewell Productions under the umbrella of Archewell. And when they set it up in 2020, they wanted to, in their words, unleash the power of compassion to drive systematic cultural change.
Who's that supposed to be?
That's supposed to be Meghan.
Okay.
I love the way he does that.
I mean, I could do you Harry as well, if you like. Unleash the power of compassion to drive systematic cultural change. None of which, of course, they've done.
I feel as though he's in the room.
I know. It's like he's been kicked in the mouth by a horse.
But unfortunately,
exactly like
I mean, like almost everybody else that's ever worked for Harry and Meghan, the person who runs the production company has left. Senior manager at a production company called Bennett Levine, who was hired because he was quite good at, you know, TV production. And this was a guy that they thought could help them to make a few documentaries, maybe to make a few movies. But he's basically left on the basis that they're not doing anything.
I mean, this is their 17th staff member to leave.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Ever since they got together and they lived in Kensington Palace, the first sort of whiff of a problem that we all got in the media was that we suddenly noticed that lots of people didn't work for them for very long. You know, they were hiring and firing people at a rate of knots. You know, people would go and work for them 6 months later, they'd be out because either they didn't get along with them or the person just couldn't deal with getting emails at 5 a.m. and all this kind of thing, you know. So basically, you know, they've lost their Spotify contract, they've lost their Netflix contract.
Well, apparently the Netflix contract one is shaky.
They took a private jet to Jamaica to see the Bob Marley film with the head of Paramount, who apparently has got his own jet. So they might be trying to get some kind of action from them. But it's all just a bit sad, it seems to me, that, you know, they're starting 2024. This time last year, his book was out. And so people were talking about everything that was in that book. But it just seems as though they've kind of hit the buffers, doesn't it?
The sheen has worn off. I mean, the thing is, if you're going to run any kind of company, you have to have some knowledge of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
She's an actress, a former actress, and Harry hasn't had a proper job in his entire life. They don't really bring very much to the table.
He did fly a helicopter, though.
He can't fly a helicopter.
Well, as the number 2 pilot.
Exactly. He was a gunner. He doesn't actually know. He failed his pilot training. But the point is, they don't actually bring anything to the table. And so you're working for these people that really don't know what they're talking about. Of course, you don't think this is going to lead to success. Have you seen the video of her saying, "We have so many exciting projects in the works"?
And that wasn't that long ago, Rebecca, was it?
Feel things.
It wasn't. And I know probably everyone's going to disagree with me on this, but I don't necessarily think now the problem is Meghan or Harry. I think at the beginning, yes. But nobody is going to take the job of doing their PR, rebranding them, bringing them back into the front. That Netflix documentary was their most viewed documentary of the year for Netflix. It was people watch it, people still talk about it. Yeah. But I think with those two characters, I personally am really tired. I find it bullying against Meghan, and that's just my opinion. But that job is really impossible. You cannot now rebrand, particularly Meghan. I think women get a harder time of this. You cannot rebrand her. So nobody, whatever, even if she got a Hollywood film and was playing herself effectively, I don't think anyone
she could solve world hunger and people would just find her unlikable.
That's the problem.
Well, when this guy was hired,
their brand.
When this guy was hired in 2021, Omid Scobie, our good friend and good friend of the Harry and Meghan brigade, said that Archewell was, in his words, a hive of activity that continues to grow.
Yeah.
Not really.
But are you referring to the heavily surgically enhanced Omid Scobie?
Yes.
That's the one you're referring to?
Absolutely.
I've seen evidence.
I mean, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they spend their time doing.
I heard there's going to be a Suits the movie. Is that right?
Yeah.
There's supposed to be some kind of
they're just
recasting.
piggybacking off Markle's fame.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoy Suits. I knew of her before. Exactly, it's a fantastic
You can switch off your brain.
I don't know what her place would be, but
I'm just going to very quickly disagree with you, Mike, because I unlock the power of compassion every day.
Do you? Of course you do. I can see it in your eyes.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. Thank God somebody's doing it, because these two are really not making the cut. Now, it's for me to decide who should win it, and I think it's got to be only one winner, and it's got to be, I think, the Metropolitan Police, isn't it? Yay! Because, I mean, after all, just because I want to say the name again, Maya Hatsipetkova is still basically out there telling people they can't sing.
I didn't expect to win this.
Here is the plank. And so
we
give it to the Metropolitan Police. Voluntary only. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks to Esther, thanks to Rebecca, thanks to Howard, thanks to Stephen as well. We'll be back same time next week with another plank of the week. Tonight, The World According to Mike Graham, 11:30. Don't miss it.